Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Devin.
We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids,
but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like.
Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood.
And how they feel like they're holding it all together.
Or how they're not.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. On this episode, we have on Dave Glaser. Dave lives in Colorado and is an Enneagram coach, a strength and conditioning coach, and a podcaster. In this episode, we get into some pretty deep topics. We talk about how he redefined his relationship with his kid when they got older, a lot about male mental health, how the Enneagram helps you understand yourself. Dave and Justin both share their stories of sobriety, and Justin asked Dave about jiu-jitsu and how it's helped him. We really hope you enjoy the episode. Yeah, I just moved to Littleton last July, August, from Nashville.
Right.
And I've already met quite a few people who are like 2 or 3 people who live in Fort Collins, who definitely lived in the greater Denver area for like 10 to 15 years. But as their kids got older, they were like, this is a lot. Fort Collins doesn't seem too bad. So here we go.
No, I have roots in Littleton. I went to Chatfield High School.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And went to CSU, probably, that was 2000, 2001. And then met my daughter's mom here in town.
Okay.
And so my daughter's 22 now. She lives in a smaller town south of Greeley.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's not far. And so like the roots of Fort Collins were familiar, but I didn't quite know what I was getting myself back into after experiencing the town as a college student.
It's totally different.
It's an upgrade over Littleton, I'll tell you that much.
Hey, you leave my little suburb life alone, okay? Yeah, so I ended up in Nashville because I went to college there and then graduated like in 2010. I went to Belmont, which is like a little music and medical school now. And it is it's interesting to look at a town because like, if I think of living in Nashville now, I'm like, wait, do I think of it as like the 4 years I was in college? Do I think of it as like the 5 years I lived there before I had kids? Do I think of it for the 8 years? Like, it's crazy how your relationship with the town can change so drastically.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
I was going to say, well, not only that, but between you starting college and when you left, I don't know about Denver, but Nashville just grew astronomically to where it was like, I mean, you were there 2006, I was 2008, and it is nothing like it used to be. Like, there were so many vacant, like, lots that were just gravel parking lots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that life being measured in milestones, right? Okay, I was at CSU for this length of time.
Yeah.
I moved back down to Denver. Overall, I spent 30 plus years in the Colorado. 1992 is when I first moved to Littleton.
Yeah.
And when we first moved there, we could get to A Basin in 45 minutes from our house.
Yeah.
And now it's 2 hours minimum up I-70 corridor. So like, there's a fun meme account called I-70 Things.
Yeah.
On social media, and it's no lie. Like, the things you see on I-70, you'll see nowhere else in your life. But throughout my daughter's life, I see those same milestones. Okay, from like 1 to 2, where were we? From 2 to 8, where were we? And now that she tried community college, she tried a 4-year college, she settled on more of like an apprentice program at a dealership, working in their garage, which is pretty cool for her.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So her milestones become a part of like, oh, where was I at?
Yeah.
Who was I when my daughter was 16 during those years? And who am I now as she's 22, living her own life, earning her own money? It's like a transition, not just about our town, but who we were and where we lived at the time of our core memories.
Yeah. Now it's wild because like I have a 9-year-old, 7 and a 3-year-old. And like, I know that's what the future looks like. But right now, like our kids are still so dependent on us that their identity hasn't started to form of their own yet. And that has to be like a mental shift of where like, oh, this is your thing. I'm here to support you. and like cheer for you, but this has nothing to do with me. It has to be such a intentional shift you have to do within yourself.
Right. Yeah, I remember just shy of her 18th birthday, right after she graduates high school. It's 2020. There's a lot of unknowns happening in the world at that time. And we met for lunch, and I was curious. I asked her, I'm like, what do you want our relationship to look like when you become an adult? And, she didn't have to have an answer, and she was honest. She said, I don't know.
Yeah.
And for the last 4 years, almost 5 now, since we had that quick conversation, we've just like been exploring what that is. As she's an adult.
Yeah.
I was always in her life, weekends, every other weekend type of a schedule.
Gotcha.
So predominantly raised by her mom. But this is up to us. We get to decide who we are for each other as we're adults. And, she only lives about 25 minutes from us now.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I both moved up to Fort Collins to be closer to her 4 daughters and my daughter. So cool. I wouldn't say it's convenient because one of her daughters lives 5 minutes away with the grandson. But it's definitely a weight off of our shoulders from driving from the Denver area up to see any of our kids.
Yeah. Since her graduating, do you feel like your relationship, I mean, you said you've been working on it. Do you think it's more in depth and closer now, or pre her graduating from high school?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I see a lot more honesty from both of us. Mm-hmm. She's gotten the opportunity to be real honest with me of like, when mom and you got divorced, it seems like the two of you got over that pretty quick, but I never really did.
Yeah.
And so when she said that to me, it was like, that's a big deal. I need to be able to like understand that and receive it, because kids aren't very honest when they're 12 to 17 with their parents.
Yep.
So I took it as like just an opportunity of like, okay, when we're both adults now, she will make her own mistakes. This has nothing to do with me. And yet I can either be invited into her life in a big way, a real honest way, a real fun way, super humorous way, because she's one of the funniest people I've ever met.
That's awesome.
But it had to change. Like, it had to evolve beyond the little bit of that dependency that you're talking about, Devin, into this fully independent, autonomous being that no matter how much you want to give advice, it's not going to land. And their own life is their own life.
Yeah. Now, there's I don't know what parenting book it was in, but I remember it mentioning that, like, for most of your life, whenever you're raising your children, you have to teach them in black and white, because you teach safety in black and white. Don't go into the street because you will get hit by a car. And at some point in time, you have to shift in which, like, you can actually add gray to the coloring of it all. But you don't, like, you have to figure out how to do that with your relationship. And every single kid is different of, like, when are they ready to hear the gray of the world, basically. Because you do kind of protect your child from the gray of the world until you think they're old enough to be like, by the way, I have no idea what I'm doing. The answer is maybe. It's not yes or no. And I'm just hoping not to damage you or myself. And that's what we're doing here.
Okay. I like that. I like that perspective. So when the grandson comes over and he's jumping on the coffee table, and we're like, don't do that, and he asks why, well, you can't just say I told you so. Like,
you can. How old is he? That's the question.
He's almost 2.5.
Oh, yeah. No, you probably, it's fun because you're like, I have a 3-year-old. Justin also has a 3-year-old. And you want to explain it to them like, hey man, this is called a corner. This will give you a concussion. This is why I don't want you to jump on the table. And they're like, jump table? And you're like, no, that's
I just implanted a seed in your mind.
Yep. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
They will.
Yeah,
sure.
They will.
Yeah.
But that's we've had a lot of dads on now, and I think the one consistent theme that seems to go through all of the episodes is dads trying to figure out how to have a conversation that's ongoing with their kids. Because, like, you're figuring out how to keep the conversation ongoing with your daughter. Because the second you're like, I did the best I could whenever we got divorced. That's a wall that she has to then overcome. So like, if you're like, yeah, nope, yeah, tell me about it. Let's talk about, if you can figure out how to be invited into your child's life, you'll be part of it. But I know lots of people where they'll be like, hey, this hurt when you guys got divorced. This hurt when you did this. And they're like, well, I didn't know that hurt you. And you're like, it did. And then they're like, well, I didn't know. And you're like, you have to talk more than this if you want to continue a relationship.
Right. Yeah. You bring up something that's like a good reminder of, there's a difference between being in our children's lives and experiencing that with them, or being in their experience of their life. Right. Because her experience of that 2 years old to 22 years old is completely different than my experience of the world at that same time. So it's not just about being in their life. It's about knowing their experience of life, I think, is what you triggered in my thought process there.
Yeah. It's weird because you have your, like, you getting divorced is also a landmark moment for you. So you have to figure out how to step aside from your own interpretation of your own life and then give space for someone else's interpretation of like the exact same moment. And it's I'm not going to act like that's an easy thing. I don't think we as humans naturally look outside of ourselves. So
yeah.
No, that was definitely not a concept I had a grasp on during her formative years of 12 to 17, when she wasn't speaking to me, or I'm not sure if your oldest has a cell phone or not yet.
Not yet. Nope.
But the one word answer type conversations that go on for the past decade is like, it's
mind numbing.
It's draining, right? Hey, you want to come over and watch the Broncos playoff game? I'll let you know. Hey, can't make it.
Yep.
You know,
and that's like a 5 minute before the thing starts. Can't make it text, isn't it? But
yeah, I give her a lot of grace. She's definitely an introvert. I'm more extroverted, so she would be absolutely fine just in her room in the basement on her cell phone with headphones on for six out of 7 days.
Yeah.
And that's the experience of her world that I'm certainly not going to change, and there's no way that I can try and actually be able to live with that.
Yeah.
So you being an Enneagram coach, do you constantly, whenever you meet people or when you're having conversations with your daughter, be like, you're definitely a 5 or a 7?
I think that was like my early understanding of what the Enneagram tool was meant to do.
Gotcha.
And over time, it's a lot like, oh, you're an introvert, or you're an extrovert, or you're a Cancer, or you're a Sagittarius. And I think that the self-awareness that I gained through the Enneagram for myself is knowing when not to do that. Right? So, the tool for me has been understanding how the world sees me and how I show up in the world, to give me more compassion for other people. You know, I went to dinner with a group of friends when my daughter was 15 or 16, so she was really wanting some independence. I had a 2-bedroom apartment close to downtown Denver. It was a lot of fun, and we're sitting next to each other at dinner, and a lot of chaos going on. All my friends are extroverts. There's a 7 here, there's a 9 there, and just to briefly paint the picture of Enneagram sitting around a table at Rock Bottom Brewery. And my daughter's, after we leave, she's like, Dad, I think we fight because we're so different. I'm like, no, Maddie, like, we fight because we're so similar. Because she's an 8, I'm an 8, she's a 9, and we sit next to each other on the Enneagram, and understanding that her differences are what makes her great gives me the opportunity to look at her world through a different lens and just like say, I accept you for who you are, because that gift that you've been given is beautiful because it's different from me.
Yeah.
I'm super intense, and I know that now, and I know why people think that now through the Enneagram. But I can look at my daughter and listen to what she has to say and understand that a 9 is really reserved, and they're the mama bear of the room, and they're going to want to keep the peace in this dining room full of 16 extroverts, and she's just, why are you withdrawn? And why are you a wallflower? Oh, okay, this perspective, not pointing the finger at her like you're withdrawn because you're a 9. Oh, I have empathy for you because you're withdrawn, and it's not because you're an Enneagram peacekeeper, the 9. It's because that's who you are, and that's your experience of this of the chaos in the room.
Yeah. No, I think Enneagram stuff is super helpful, as long as you don't use it to justify, to be like, well, you're a 9, so you must not like this, and it's like, oh, well, that's no one likes that sentence directed towards them, like, or that sentiment. So,
or to use the judgment against yourself as well, thinking, oh, I'm a 4. I can't be thinking that way, where I feel like everybody is on the spectrum on the Enneagram within each typology. So
yeah, really good point. Yeah. The fluidity of life and our personalities is the gift, right?
Yeah.
And that self-judgment, I'm guilty of it for sure. Of my inner critic is so freaking loud, and so, okay, it's my dad's voice. Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah.
And it's so critical that it's not an excuse because I'm an 8. Yeah. Oh, I do that because I'm an 8. No, I have an opportunity for growth because this is the path to soften this really intense exterior, which holds people at a distance. And if I ever want to be happy in relationship, I definitely have to understand that's how people see me.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not trying to come across that way.
As a 4, I just have to, like, if I go into a room and I'm like, I realize I'm not talking, and then I'm like, oh, it's because you're looking for the special, unique vantage point to have in this conversation. And it's like, okay, so you're actually missing out on an opportunity for connection because you're more worried about being seen as special than connection. So you can still connect without being the special one in the group. So not stop it, but like, just, this is what you're doing. This is where your energy is today. So, hey man, you're here to connect with people. Like, you'll have an opportunity to feel special. Like, you'll be okay, but like, connect. You're here. Do this.
Really well said. Really well said. So let's just start a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And that'll help me be special.
That's right. And actually use my undergrad degree of music business for something. So that's it.
I am a 4 as well, and I think that's why me and Devin have so much in common as far as just personality wise, but definitely a different type of 4 than Devin, which is amazing. I'm not making fun of you or anything.
No, that was the most 4 sentence you could possibly say. We're both 4s, but we're very specially, uniquely different 4s.
Yes, we are.
So that's why I laughed, because you're like, we're 4s, but just so you know, we're very different types of 4s, and we're special.
Well, because he was talking about, or you brought up the part about starting the podcast, where it took me constantly talking to Devin to do it, but then once he got into it, oh my gosh, like just like a rocket ship went off.
Well, I'm also a Taurus, which means that it takes me a very long time to do anything. And whenever I do it, then I'm like 200% in. But like I'm very earth elemental, very ground. So it takes me forever to get to do something.
Yeah.
Once I'm there, like it took us like 10 to 11 years to decide to move out to Denver. So trust me. Like,
yeah. Will I be special if I move to Denver?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. But Dave, it is true. You learn about, like, I think Enneagram has been the most helpful of all, like, the personality types for me. It makes me aware of what roadblocks I keep putting up in front of myself. And then I can finally look at them and be like, oh, why do you keep in your head on this? Well, because have you thought it from this perspective, which is usually Enneagram related? Then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's why you don't want to do any of that stuff. And there's some childhood wound or some lie that says this is all wrapped up in. And once I can acknowledge that, then I can start the process of unraveling those two things together.
Yeah, really well said. A key takeaway, I think, is like our Enneagram personality type. It's a wonderful typing system. It's not the only one out there, but it gave me a clue into where to start.
Yeah.
Of like the Enneagram personality is typically solidified in your late teen, early 20s, though that era of your life, which if you go to college right after high school, you're going to be bringing a lot of different influences into your Enneagram personality type. And for me, going off an hour plus away from home, staying in the dorms was super vulnerable. Definitely covered that up with a lot of gym time, very little studying time, not necessarily knowing which direction I wanted to go in life, and trial and error, finding a lot of mistakes along the way. Because right before you leave for college, your Enneagram type gets solidified. All right, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
And like you said, even going backwards beyond that, earlier in life, my childhood, formative years, like who was I, and what needs were getting met by my family or my environment, and what needs were not getting met.
Yeah.
And then try not to pass that on to our own kids.
Pretty much.
Yes.
It's a fascinating reality because, like, no matter what I do, I know I'm going to create deficits within my children because it's part of being human. You cannot be everything to anyone, even to your own self. But so it is like, as you go through life, you're like, oh, is that going to be a therapy session later? Was that like, just go ahead and start the fund now? Like, how does this work? What's the proper parenting here?
Is that the apology fund?
Yeah. I didn't pay for your college, but here I can at least pay for the therapy that being around me so much causes.
But having your father in your life, or even not having your father in your life, and knowing what not to do, and then using that as a model in with your kids is, I mean, as long as you're a good dad, that's what you try to do. But if you don't, if you're not I'm not saying if you're not a good dad, but an absent dad will not think of that, if that makes sense.
That's a big statement for sure. And I think that I was listening to the Matt Carney episode. I'm a huge fan.
Are you really?
Fan.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Have been for a really long time too. There's a lot of soul to his music, and there's a lot of, like, you can groove, you can definitely jam out to it as well, and play it as loud or as soft as you want. It's still going to be good stuff. But you know, this imagery of a good dad, that can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you didn't ask, but my own definition of that, like, grounded, present, aware, and speaking to the apology fund, being a pro therapy person myself invites the rest of my family around me to be interested, or at least exposed to a therapeutic process as well. You know, my partner's own personal therapist for the last 12 or 20 years, or however long she's been with her counselor, is now working with her daughters. So, like, this history of family system or family of origin is tremendously contextual for their counselor. She's not sharing things across that's confidential, but she's being informed, like the influence you were talking about, Devin, on your children.
Yeah.
That influence can be subjectively good or bad, right? But the effort and the presence and the groundedness and the regulated nervous system that we have in those moments is what their own central nervous system is going to understand and live with for decades. Yeah.
No, it's I feel like our generation is very focused on how to be self-regulated. And I just assume that's because, I mean, we are raised by people who that wasn't even a concept for any of them. Like, that wasn't to our generation, I feel like how we speak love to our children is, how do I get you to regulate yourself? Because this will serve you so much. And our parents had no idea that this was a concept at all, and had no ability to teach it to us. None. So that's like the sin, or whatever you want to call it, like the generational trap or whatever, that I feel like most people our age are just like, okay, whenever I was a kid, I was just told to be quiet or go to my room. That didn't help anything. So that's not gonna help my kids. So how do I change this?
That just made me more angry and bottled up. I don't want that. I don't want that for my kids.
Yep.
Well, it's for the audience. Welcome to our therapy, our group therapy session.
Basically, yes.
As we work that out, I had never heard this before, but my partner is extremely intelligent and extremely open and willing to talk about a lot of things. And she mentioned you either every household has an angry man in it.
Mm.
And if you can't recognize who that is, you're it. Right?
Yep.
So coming into my partnership about 2 years ago now, I had to be aware of that before entering into her family system, because there's no efficacy whatsoever to me raising my voice or me yelling or slamming doors at all. She gave me the forewarning of like, that's the limit. You raise your voice or you slam doors, we will have conversations about it, because I didn't know about her perspective on what a household with an angry man felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, until she said that, I didn't really realize my dad was an angry dad.
Yeah.
And he was. He's no longer that way. I have no idea. Maybe it was retirement where he didn't have to be an authoritarian figure anymore, but he's no longer like that. He actually showed empathy within the last few years, and I'm unsure of where that began and where that started. But it's like this generational mirror or generational thread that you're talking about. Yeah, our parents did not have much self-awareness. They were in survival mode because their parents were
even
post
worse.
World War II or World War II
Great
vets
Depression.
themselves,
Yep.
So
even worse on being closed in and compartmentalized.
Yeah, without a doubt.
No, I think all this stuff is it's all the undercurrent that exists within all of us. Of like, I always tell people like one thing that I don't feel like people talk about whenever you become a parent is that you get to determine what normal is for your children and for your family. So that means you have to be in tune with what's your normal. Because like if your dad slammed doors all the time growing up or did something like that to express the anger he felt during the entire day, you're just like, as just a dad. And to your partner, it's like, no, that's anger and rage. And you're like, oh, have I normalized anger and rage for my entire life?
Yeah.
Is that good or bad? Actually, I have no idea. I need to go talk about it. Let's go figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being reflective on our family of origin and our family system is a truly valuable skill to learn. It's not something that's ingrained in us without a doubt. I didn't know this before before my own daughter's life experience started to wake me up to my responsibility, right? She's that generation below me or behind me that is reflecting back to me what influence I had on her life. And I had to grow up to not outpace, not compete with her, but to lead. I think leading my teenage daughter, leading my young adult daughter became a way to influence without a doubt, and while my conscious mind was normalizing my dad's anger, my central nervous system was on edge around just men in general, like not being able to trust men. So I didn't have great male friendships other than my drinking buddies.
Yeah.
And when you choose to say, let's get sober curious or to no longer drink, then who are these friends in my life?
Yeah.
And that was a crossroads for me, for sure. Just past 2 years of choosing to live a sober life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I needed entirely new friends because we didn't have anything to bond us together anymore. And getting out there into like a jiu-jitsu community, getting out there into that was probably the most formative community, but also like a church men's group for 5 years, and then more of like an online community during COVID to bring it all back around to just summarizing the last 5 years of the experience. Regulating my nervous system was unfamiliar to me. How do I heal that for myself so that I can heal that alongside my daughter? Because she needed that too.
just because I'm interested, what type of steps besides quitting drinking, what did you feel like was helpful to recalibrate your nervous system?
I'm definitely finding ways to push my edge and to sharpen the edge of the sword, right? Iron sharpens iron, right? So men's work for me was the way to do the weekly work. Jiu-jitsu is a way to do the physical work. My church men's group for 5 years that I was a part of was a way to do the spiritual work.
That's cool.
And then like solo one-on-one counseling with a few different counselors over the last 5 years was that emotional work.
Okay.
So I view this this healing of family systems and family of origin and all this generational trauma through like 5 pillars.
Yeah. Spiritual,
mental, physical, emotional, and financial. Because we can project our healing wounds out into the financial world too.
Yes.
I was just going to be a huge proponent for jiu-jitsu for a second.
Go for
it.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I've been thinking about doing that. My little girl is in karate class at daycare right now, and if she loves it, and if she continues on, like jiu-jitsu was the thing that I was going to put her in, and I was going to do it with her. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So tell me about it.
Sell it.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. All right. Let's finish strong here, guys. I watched my daughter do jiu-jitsu for 2 years. Her stepdad, who recently passed away, was a black belt at a school in their town. So she would go with him, and she got into it. And I'm like, okay, if my daughter can do it, I can do it. I've always been interested in like how hard and intense the MMA workout is, because that's me as the challenger type 8 showing up again. And I'm like, okay, if she can do it, I can get outside my comfort zone and do it as well, because adult co-ed softball was not cutting it anymore. And, the first 3 months of jiu-jitsu was incredibly hard. And maybe because I started during like a guillotine phase of training and coaching, and that was the lessons we were learning, which puts a lot of pressure on your neck. But I think sticking with something that is so incredibly hard and will push your edge and sharpen your edge every single time you show up with humility and in a humbling way, but sticking with that discipline, whether it's karate or Muay Thai or kickboxing or, even before jiu-jitsu, I was boxing a lot. And it was just really nice to hit something hard without consequences.
Yeah.
But the transition into jiu-jitsu taught me so much more about that discipline that I was seeking in my life, that it's really hard to go to jiu-jitsu class on a Saturday after having 2 beers Friday night.
Yeah. But you got to push yourself to do it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you are put into such confronting positions with most of the time another man, but it's a co-ed sport. And I have had women kick my ass up and down the mat. This is not a gender thing, but referring what I was saying earlier about not trusting other men, to have an agreement in a choke you out sport where you're like, yes, please choke me, but there's a boundary.
Yeah.
And it's the tap. It's the submission.
Yeah.
It's the trust that you have with your teammate, that if you do this together, you will both improve. Wow. And I think that through that, I call it an embodiment practice. It's a spiritual practice. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. And there's a financial component to it as well. Being I think it's my 3rd highest bill every month.
Yeah.
And dedicating 8.5 years to this discipline is the difference maker. It could be any sport. It could be karate. It could be Muay Thai. It could be that Taekwondo. But the beauty and the thing that differentiates jiu-jitsu from all of those others is that you will never master jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But you could be like a 9-degree black belt karate master and maybe not ever learn anything new.
Yeah.
But the evolution of the sport in jiu-jitsu from a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis is why we have turnover at the world champion level.
Yeah.
every single year.
Nobody holds it for very long.
That's cool.
Without a doubt. So that's my sales pitch for jiu-jitsu.
Well, cool. Well, you were talking about iron sharpening iron. I don't know if you guys have ever read this book. I'm reading it right now.
Yeah.
But man, talk about discipline and pushing your boundaries. Most people are only using 40%, and you can push your max, and I forget what he called it. It wasn't numbing the brain, but it was in a way sharpening the brain through the discipline.
Yeah.
But
100%.
Something else that I wanted to ask about, and this is kind of off topic, but you talked about you being sober. I'm 3.5 years sober as well.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Cool.
And when I got sober, I don't know if this is the same story as for you, but it took months for not me just to regulate with my gut, but my brain as well. And it took therapy and some medication, because stopping that, it was really difficult. And I stopped cold turkey because my wife was like, this has got to stop. So, But I don't know how yours was. If you had those struggles, I had a lot of anger issues involved with that detox mode as well. And a lot of the people that I work with now, they're like, they've heard stories and they're like, I would have never have thought of that of you.
That's a testament to your own growth. And I just want to celebrate that for you.
Well, thank you.
With you.
Yeah.
Because the transformative, you can't even expect to transform like that. It has to be a decision.
Yeah.
I think when I first started my podcast, I sought out people within my network already that I thought were experts in dating and relationships and marriage and stuff like that, because that's where I saw a lot of my energy going, and where a lot of my wounds were showing up is in my relationships. And I invited a client of mine in my personal training business. I respected her a lot. I valued her opinion. She's a 7 on the Enneagram, so she's vibrant and she takes up a lot of space. And she was familiar enough with the Enneagram that we could speak to her relationship. I knew her husband very well. I knew his daughter well. They were all part of my friend group. Again, they were at the 16-person dinner at Rock Bottom that overwhelmed my daughter. So she and I prepped for the podcast episode talking about this gray area drinking idea that she was pursuing at the time. She and her husband were having some marital problems, and they thought it was all around drinking, which it turns out it was true. So she came in on the podcast as a guest and talked about this. You're a binge drinker, but only one night a week, or you drink 7 nights a week, but it's only one glass of wine. So it's not an addiction or an alcoholism. It's this gray area in between where you still have this dependency and this desire and this need to either cover up or numb or disconnect through alcohol. And that's who I was, for sure. I was disconnecting from everything problematic in my life. And through the reflection of her coming to be a guest on the podcast, talking about it for an hour, and then just in general being my friend, both she and her husband chose to get sober at the same time. He was an alcoholic. She definitely had her own battles with it for decades as well. This is probably around 36, 37 when I had this conversation. I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Let me try a period of time without alcohol and see what changes. So I would try like a 4-month period, a 7-month period, a 9-month period. And every time that I went back to like, what would it be like to bring that relationship back into my life? Things didn't end up going very well for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Self-sabotage would show up, limiting beliefs would show up, that numbness would show up again. And I just decided that like, instead of looking at the behavior, which was self-destructive and not moving me forward in any way, it was hard to train jiu-jitsu the day after a beer or two. Yeah. I decided to look at my values instead. And the value that I came across was like, I value a sober life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sobriety in a lot of different ways. Not just alcohol, but porn and masturbation and sex and all of these other things that I think a lot of men can relate to. It's the value that I attach to that helped me say, okay, January 23rd, 2023, enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't exactly say that like the outcome has been drastic or astronomically in change, but that would be actually diminishing the wins that I've seen along the way of like entering into this relationship with my partner who's been sober for 14 years. Yeah. And I don't believe that our relationship could work if either one of us were dependent on anything. So we're clearer, we're more honest with each other, we're less anxiously attached and avoidant of our emotional challenges. I've lost a job in that time. I was unemployed for 8 or 9 months. And then I got a bad job. And the bad job solved one problem, but it wouldn't necessarily be like quitting drinking fixed all my problems because I still have real world problems.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just able to face them with reality now and honesty and
clear mind,
ownership.
Yeah.
And so that would be a quick summary of the decision to, I think, make a big change.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point about how your friends kind of had to change because of the you had drinking buddies. Now you don't drink. So your goals, your ambitions, your needs and wants kind of changed as well. And now you got to find new friends. I kind of am on the same page. A lot of my friends that I've had on the podcast were my drinking buddies. Chris, Marcus, and Aaron, and all of them. But my focus with them and my relationship with them has changed quite a bit with me not drinking. So I'm totally there with you on that. And part of me is like, I don't like that, but it's reality.
Yeah. Well, Justin, I feel like you always described it as whatever your relationship with drinking was, is that you never knew how just to do a drink. So you didn't have it within you to ever casually do it. So if you ever did it, you were like, I'm going to drink a 6-pack. You couldn't just drink one. It was 0 or 20. And there was no middle gear for you.
So I quit alcohol twice. Once I quit for a full year. And then when that full year was up, I went back to drinking, but not whiskey or bourbon. Because before I was drinking bourbon like it was nothing, and I was hiding it. I was drinking a bottle and then hiding that empty bottle and buying another one so nobody would notice. And my wife was like, all right, you got to stop. I thought I could handle it again with just not the bourbon or the whiskey. So I started back with like beer, vodka, and like rums and stuff like that. And I started to develop that habit again of whenever I would take a shot of vodka, I'd pour water back into the jug to make it look like I didn't drink any. And it got to that point, and luckily my wife was strong enough and loving enough to say, hey, you've got to stop.
Yeah. And luckily you had hit a rock bottom that was low enough that you're like, okay, you know what? These are no longer habits I can continue.
Yeah.
And none of this is who I need to be as a person.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean,
I need to clean this up. My
wife was, 6 months pregnant at that point where I had to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of that. Like every time that I would think about drinking, I would just think of Haley and I would think of Ada, and it would stop. And that's how I was able to do it cold turkey. Yeah. And same with the smoking. I stopped smoking. I haven't smoked a single thing, not a cigarette, cigar, or anything like that since 3 days before Ada was born.
Yeah.
I quit it. I just said, I'm done with it. I do not want my little baby girl to have to smell it and put that on her or the rest of my family. But man, that was what I looked at whenever I was having trouble or thinking about doing it again. It's just thinking of those two.
I mean,
Powerful.
it's a lot of inertia to undo, because I mean, like, I don't know, most people I know who smoke cigarettes started at a pretty young age. So by the time they get to their mid-30s, they've been smoking for like 15 to 20 years. So to suddenly be like, I'm no longer doing this anymore, you're undoing all that inertia. You've got your own brain chemicals you have to retrain. There's a ton that you have to then undo, and what your body is kind of like, oh man, there's like a lyric by Jenny Lewis that's your demons have reason to fight. And that always sticks in my head whenever I'm trying to detox from something, is like, hey, you need to stop being this person. Cool. Those demons, they want to hold on to this. So they're not going to let go easily.
So I would have anger issues, and I was that angry person. I had angry issues, especially when I was drunk. And during that detox time, my whole chemistry changed. My whole dependency changed, that I was angry sober.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you had said, constantly on high alert and fight or flight mode. And one little mishap would just set me off. But then I got counseling, therapy, and I have a psychiatrist that I really love and who helps me and understands where I'm at and how I work. And I'm on a medication now to calm that down. And that's where I hope to be. I hate to have to be on the medication for as long as I am, and it might possibly be until I'm dead. But I'm in a happier place for my kids and for my wife. So I will do it. I'll continue doing it.
Yeah, way to go. Whatever it takes.
Yeah,
whatever it takes.
If you can end the day being like, hey, I'm proud of who I was today, instead of what do I need to hide about what I did today, then I feel like you're on a good path.
Yep.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
So how we end every episode is we ask every guest 5 questions to close out the episode, and Justin will ask the first question whenever he's ready.
Let's do it.
Dave, did you have a backup name for your daughter?
Oh. No, we had both settled on Madison.
Okay.
During the birthing process, Maddie's cord got wrapped around her throat, so they had to do an emergency C-section. And while my wife at the time was coming out of anesthesia, she was awake the whole time. She complimented me on my scrubs. She's like, "You look so handsome in your scrubs." She came to, and she's like, I wanted to see Maddie, and I had chosen the middle name without consulting her.
Oh.
And luckily it had worked out. Madison Graciella is her name. So I got lucky with choosing the middle name without having a backup plan whatsoever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Next question. Do you have a favorite TV or movie dad?
Oh, wow. Okay. So many influences from, I think, TGIF.
Yeah.
That era.
Yeah.
I mean, during the time that Tim Allen, Tool Time, Home Improvement was on TV, he was like our role model at the time, because that show was getting a little bit more honest, with like the vasectomy conversation that they had.
Yeah.
And, it exposed families to like a little bit of conflict, but also how to resolve it. I think I was too young to emulate, or too young to adopt, or too ingrained in my own family system to make those changes. But definitely somebody like that, a present dad, a grounded dad, the tool guy, and I think that would be my best guess.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's fair.
That's a good one. All right. Next question. Do you have a least favorite kid show or movie that your kid would watch over and over again, or one that was just absolute garbage?
Oh, that's so funny because I remember sleeping on the couch while my daughter watched these shows that were on repeat. We were not well off. We had financial struggles all of my daughter's youth because being a dad at 22, there's not a whole lot of traction that you can get without a college degree. And so she would watch A Bug's Life and Ants over and over and over again. And I think that Woody Allen was not necessarily the greatest role model for children to be in the movie Ants.
Nope.
There's a lot of humor. We watched it just last week with our grandson, and I'm like, whoa, that's some line right there. We're not exposing our grandson to Woody Allen yet.
Yeah. That's awesome. Next question. Did you have a favorite kids' toy or activity that you do with your daughter?
Oh, wow. For a long time, we would go to either the park on a nice weather day, or we would go to the library.
Mm-hmm.
I would pick her up from school, probably around kindergarten, first grade age range. It was an arrangement my ex and I had where I'd pick her up and I'd spend a few hours with her every day after school. And she would just begin to request it. Hey, can we go to the library? Hey, can we go to the gym? Hey, can we go to the park? You know, and all of those things felt connecting and generative in nature, and bringing a good influence into my daughter's life, depending on what she was inclined to do that day. You know, I think at first and kindergarten and first grade is a great time to start talking about their own choices, including them in choices, giving them autonomy a little bit. Agency, I think, is better than autonomy, because on autonomy, you're not leaving them alone, but you're giving them agency and sovereignty. And I think that those are two things to introduce. The earlier, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, we try to do that a lot with our daughters. Is we go daughter, son. So the two older ones that are 9 and 7 are both girls. And we're just always trying to figure out, how do we make sure to include them in this discussion and in this? Or like, they just had both their birthdays. It's like, cool, what do you want for your party? Like, tell us what you want and we'll talk to you about how we can make that happen or not. And like, they love their birthday parties. And I'm like, I'm sure that's because we didn't walk up to them and say, you're doing it like this, because they're old enough to know, you know?
Yeah.
Do they bully your son? Because I have 2 older sisters.
They do not yet. They do exclude him a little bit, but also though, like, they're in their rooms playing with Barbies. So like the 3-year-old coming in, trying to like run trains and cars over all of it. Like, I'm like, I can understand why you don't want him in here. That's fine. I get that.
Oh man. All right. Next and last question, Dave. What is one moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of?
Jiu-jitsu ended for my daughter because I started doing it and it was no longer her thing.
Okay.
All right, so she definitely protest quit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at around that same time, she was really deciding for herself what her life was going to look like. So she chose to get into marching band, and she would play the 3rd largest bass in the drum line, and it was her thing. Like, she, up until COVID, which ruined her senior year, she was in it. And I think that going to one of her halftime shows, because it was halfway between us at the time, going to that for or with her was truly a once in a lifetime thing, because I could separate myself from that and not make it about me. Snap a quick photograph of her in her uniform, just so proud of herself for getting the choreography and doing multiple things at one time is really hard, and then learning steps across the football field also makes it a degree of difficulty that she had never really bit off or tried
Yeah.
before. And unfortunately, that senior year was a little bit derailed for her. She missed out on orchestra and prom, and
Mhm.
the walking of the graduation ceremony was different. It was
Yeah.
like 93 degrees that day out in the sun. And
Oh man.
so I feel for her, definitely.
Yeah.
But glad to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
The other thing we do to end an episode is just an opportunity for like self-promotion. So like if we want to follow you on Instagram, get to know you better, anything like that, any self-promotion for yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think the best way to get a hold of me is at Coach Dave Glaser on Instagram. Don't post much on the main feed, but I do hit the stories regularly. Very topical conversations start, world events, current events. Very topical conversations can start on Instagram. And then if you're interested in the Enneagram, one-on-one coaching, daveglaser.com.
Awesome.
Nice. We're grateful for your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. That was awesome.
Great talking to you.
Yeah. But
All
yeah,
right.
man, that's all we got. Enjoy your day, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the episode.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Imperfect Dads Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to us.
The music is provided by the Wildfeathers.
And all episodes are produced and edited by me.
Make sure to tune in Mondays for new episodes.